Yeah, baby.
John
Can't even
Cena.
see. Ah, there he is.
There he is.
He doesn't have his ears on either, so he can't hear
All right,
anything.
I am set.
There we go.
I was talking about how like sexy you were and all that stuff, and you just missed all of it. So okay, so early rounds. Now I think Puzzle will agree. So no tournament is without hiccup. So
Yeah.
like, but as far as organization goes, I feel like now this wasn't a professional organization that does this for a living or what have you. It was just basically a group of volunteers dedicating their time to organizing and performing in a tournament setting. And given those inputs, I think they performed excellently. Like everything from round to round to round. Oh, by the way, shout out to Eminence and their website. As soon as the winners from each pod were put in, all they had to do was like hit a button. You know, the pods were reset, and like they thought it was going to take like 30 minutes to arrange like new pods for the next rounds. I mean, literally seconds. So shout out to Eminence for their hot tech. But I mean, I went from round to round. Like, so Puzzle probably had the longer play experience. Like he probably played all 12 hours.
Yep, I sure did. Except for the first round. But yeah,
mine went relatively quick because I remember, because we had other buddies in here too. We had Jorbs, we had Morgana, and I think it's just us four, right?
I think so.
So being the proud daddy that I am, I'd constantly look to see if the other pods were active and see if they were still playing or what have you. My first game, I was actually paired against Jorbs and Morgana.
Yeah, I saw that.
And okay, okay. So I was talking earlier about getting Munson. So I got Morgana'd the first game.
Yep.
I'm playing against who was I playing against? I was playing against Chuck. Chuck was on that weird the landfall deck. Who was the
Kodama?
Yeah,
Kodama Tago.
Yes, yeah. So he was on that Kodama Tago, and then it's been so long I can't even remember the anyway. Full board states. Morgana's got one creature. It's a cost reducer for her combo thing, right? I got tore out. I hit an Evikar's Justice, no buyback, and she counters it to save her one creature and doesn't allow me to clear the entire board.
Yeah.
So
rough.
How was your early? I know you had one. Were you in that pod that had the trouble?
Yeah. So my first round, somebody had some webcam trouble, so we had to get a person with a buy to play instead. But it didn't matter that much because we lost turn 4 to Savala.
Got juiced.
My only counter spell was Rewind, which cost 4. And the Alayla player, I think, just didn't have any interaction. So we just kind of got smoked that round.
Mm-hmm. What was your fastest win in the early games? Or were you just grinding the whole time?
I only won once in the early games. I went 1-3, but I won. Oh, it was late game still, probably like turn 9 maybe.
So between the tie breaks and didn't you get going into the semifinals? Didn't you get bumped?
I think I was the highest placed person with 1 win. And then I think someone above dropped as well, but I think the way it showed the standings was just a little off. So I think I would have made top 16 regardless, like as number 16.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it was a little interesting the labeling for, because they had number of wins, how many points you had, and then they had this weird percentage that was really difficult to kind of gauge exactly what it meant. And I assume it to mean what your opponent's win percentage was.
Yeah, combined.
So
average.
if your opponents had a lower win percentage, then you ranked higher.
You ranked worse, I think, because if your opponents
because you play better. Yeah, you play better opponents. Okay, yeah.
So my opponents had a 27% win rate. So on average, I was playing against winners. So
because you're a champion.
Because
you're a fucking champion.
Yeah.
Okay, so I had so by the time I left, after 4 rounds, I had already played like 8.5 hours of Magic. Now we had like small breaks in there, and if you got done earlier, you had other breaks. But between like housework and letting dogs out and all that stuff, it was really just this like solid 8 hours of like go upstairs, come back down, go upstairs, come back down for me. Mm-hmm. So by the time I got off, like I didn't watch your semis at all. And in fact, I may have spent part of that time kind of rewatching the footage because what they did for the stream, their stream, and Ryan's got it up. Well, the semis or the finals, it's just the one game. But during the regular rounds, the Swiss, they would just switch between the games and then do commentary over top of that. So yeah, I spent part of that time just kind of re-looking, like analyzing my own plays. You know, I'm not without mistakes and all that stuff. So I didn't catch that, and I even went next door to enjoy a fine cigar in a warm house and stuff like that. So by the time I got back to the house, got inside, crawled into bed, and I told Ryan this earlier, I had taken a Benadryl like 11:30 or something like that, and I was fighting sleep to watch you finish that game. So I'm sitting there lying up in bed, and I got the sleep monster big time, and I'm just sitting there like watching it. So okay, so take us into the semis and then into your final game.
And perhaps even could we rewind a little bit and go to the deck itself? I think this would be a great place to start here.
I inherently do this now. I do that a lot.
Yeah, so we're gonna find. Let's see if we can find. It's unfortunate the way they listed this here because it's really hard to find the commander. But
they listed the wrong one on there. But they listed my. Oh, did they get the? They changed it. Never mind. We're good. Initially, they had my Kadira list on there.
So we had a no ban list cPDH Gretchen Titchwillow, the little halfling that could, here in the command zone. And tell us about the deck.
Yeah, so basically it's a deck that's just trying to make infinite mana and use Gretchen in the command zone as an outlet to draw through your deck and win from there. My list has the simplified win condition of using the door. I can't remember the name.
Secret door?
Secret door.
Yeah, Secret door.
Yeah, I'll find all the cards as you talk about them.
Yeah, so that lets you venture into the dungeon. And so I would go through the Lost Mine of Phandelver, which has the Dark Pool to drain each opponent for 1. And additionally, at the end of that, you have to draw a card, which means I have another loop in my deck with a Boro Breeze Color combined with Mystic Sanctuary and Reclaim.
Yep, so Ouroboros Breeze Color returns a land to your hand, you untap a land. That land that you're untapping is covered in auras, so you're making enough mana to activate Gretchen Titchwillow and put that land back into play, correct? And that makes you mana positive?
So, assuming you have infinite mana already, at this point, you can cast Reclaim targeting something, you can bounce your Mystic Sanctuary to hand, and then put it back into play with Gretchen, drawing the card you reclaimed.
Where's Oh, there it is. There's Reclaim. Yep. So Reclaim puts it back on top. Okay.
Yep. And then you draw that card with Gretchen, and you put Mystic Sanctuary into play. Mystic Sanctuary ETB, you target the Reclaim, put it back, you activate Gretchen, draw it.
And that's infinite blue.
Loop this. Yeah, and you can loop that to actually refill your deck. And from that point, you can infinitely venture, presenting that loop as well in between. to basically venture infinitely.
You also have a couple of soft wins as well. Infinite Mana Capsize would be one
Infinite
of
Mana
them.
Capsize.
Although it's worth saying that an Infinite Mana Capsize oftentimes leads to other forms of win. If you can return, say, an Archaeomancer.
You can bounce Archaeomancer infinitely and win with compulsive research, drawing everybody out. There's a lot of win conditions once you have the infinite.
You also have, I believe you have Deep Analysis. No, you do not.
Nope.
Deep Analysis is another one that can be used that way, where you can target players with it and make them draw their whole deck out. Compulsive Research does the same. You also have, let's see, what else do you have? You have Snap Archaeomancer, another combo. This one, High Tide, leading off on High Tide with an Archaeomancer and a Snap, allows you to infinitely snap the Archaeomancer in and out of play and generate infinite mana.
So all you need for that is a land that taps for... If you have 2 lands that combine tap for 7 mana, you can make infinite mana with that combo.
And you don't even need High Tide at that point, right?
Combos. Yep. Freed from the Real combos. Galvanic Alchemist is essentially a second copy of Freed from the Real. There's a Borrow Breeze Caller, which can go infinite on its own, or with a land untapper, Stone Cedar Hierophant, that untaps whenever land ETBs. There's a lot of ways to make infinite, and the deck just ramps and plays Thrasios until then.
Yeah, so one of the things I wanted to talk about, I watched that whole game through, and I gotta say, I was so excited. I was like, it was late, I was kind of sleepy, but as I started to pay attention to the game state, a couple of things that I learned, because I came into the game partway through. First thing I noticed, you were at 32 life. Second thing I learned is that you essentially had a full grip of cards, 7 cards in hand. You had very little commander damage. And when I first tuned in, my first thought was, if this was cPDH, I would think that I was fucking dead. Because a Gretchen, basically like an untouched Gretchen, with a full grip of cards. And then the third thing I noticed was that you had 3 auras on one land, as well as an aura on a Simic Growth Chamber. And so you just had gobs of mana, and you weren't being pressured. And my initial thought was, and people will see this in the recording if they go and they see the VOD for the chat, I was popping off. I was like, dude, this is like, I think Gretchen's going to win this game. Like, I think Puzzlebox is going to get this if they don't see what's going on. And so take us through the flow of the game, and how we got to like a mid-game state that was so congested and so unaggressive, because I think you noticed too, like nobody was swinging out, right? There was very little combat damage being deployed until the end.
So my opening hand had I went to 6. I had an Aether Spellbomb, and then I had 2 land enchantments, some card draw, and 2 lands. So basically turn 1, and I was last in turn order, which is not great, but I was in between Winota and Gitrog, which is pretty good for me.
And why is that?
In my opinion, I get to untap before the Gitrog player during the turn cycles, in a way, quote unquote. They have to play with me having open mana every turn.
Same with the Kodama Tago deck, which had some combos in it as well.
Yep. Yeah, so I prevent the Gitrog from comboing, which means that by threatening interaction, they don't want to combo, which means I get to hold up interaction for Kodama. So that's really good for me. And I was really looking forward to playing against Winota. That was my first game against Winota. But Winota helps me so much with stacks pieces. It helps me slow the game down. And that's where I want to be.
You know, it was pretty funny to look at that. The rule of law effect that was in play was Deafening Silence. And
that was so good for me.
Dude, yeah, this is the funny thing is like no discredit to the announcers, but the announcers were misunderstanding how that card was playing out. They thought that it was holding you back, and it was doing quite the opposite. And I think
counter spell a turn.
And this is partially just like format knowledge, because it's like, what do you play at common, right? Well, the removal that you've got in your deck is bounce spells. So you've got echo. So I was sitting there screaming to the moon, like, it doesn't, like, this is great. He's not getting pressured. Nobody's developing their board. He's got an activated ability he can sink mana into over and over and over again that does not interact with Deafening Silence. And it's just an Echoing Truth, or actually, you have less bounce spells than I thought. So it was really just Echoing Truth.
Snap.
Oh, Snap wouldn't have gotten rid of Deafening Silence.
Oh yeah.
Capsize.
And
But
Capsize,
I am
okay.
playing.
But tutors.
Unlike my cPDH deck version, I am playing the Naturalize.
Oh yeah. Oh, you've got it's Nature's Claim.
Yeah,
Okay.
Nature's Claim.
So
not
you've
Naturalize.
got, so you had Nature's Claim as an out. You also had, do you have Dizzy Spell? Dizzy Spell
Yep.
into Nature's Claim.
So I have 3 CMCs, and I have multiple
Tutors.
ways to tutor each of those.
Yeah, so Merchant Scroll into Capsize, Merchant Scroll into Echoing Truth, Merchant Scroll or Dizzy Spell into Nature's Claim. So you had, and this is kind of what I was sitting on, is like, I thought you had more bounce spells, but it doesn't matter. You didn't need more bounce spells. You just needed any of the ways to find them. And so the interpretation by the desk was, this rule of law is controlling the Gretchen player. And the reality is that it was just buying you time, because everybody could only cast 1 spell each turn. You're just sitting with a full grip of cards, developing your board. And the other read that they had was that, oh, he's going to have the haste problem. He's going to need an untapper in play to do this. But it's like, you had a land that produced probably 6 mana, right? You had 3 auras on it, so 7?
I could make 7 total. So
Yep.
I could win with Archaeomancer Snap, and I did have that on the turn I won. So
Yep.
even if they stopped my Freed combo, I would still be able
That's
to win.
disgusting. Well, and there's also the Ouroboros Breezecaller, which does not require haste. And I think what a lot of them didn't realize is, oh, well, they can just throw rocks at the Ouroboros. And I said, he will return every single land to his hand that is not his one that taps for all the mana, and he will win at instant speed. He'll make infinite mana, and then he'll do his thing from there. And so it was really cool to watch that, but interesting to see also the interplay between the different the different decks of the table. So why were people not attacking, do you think?
So one thing, Winota was mana screwed. That helped a lot.
Okay.
Additionally, I had Aether Spellbomb in play, which is crazy good at cEDH tables, because no one wants to cast their commander, because I have a bounce spell in play. No one wants to swing at me with their 6/6 Gitrog, because I'll just bounce it. It's not worth it.
It's really interesting how these onboard effects play out, right?
Aether Spellbomb carried the early game.
Yeah, this is something we see in cPDH too, and I think this is perhaps an area of exploration where we need more of it, which is like, there's other effects that do this. You've got Executioner's Capsule, but you've also cards like Seal of Removal, which is an enchantment, 0 mana, bounce something, and you've also got cards like Seal of Doom or Seal of Fire, right, that just sit there, and people ask themselves, why would I run into this when I can let somebody else do it? And when everybody asks that same question, nobody attacks the player who has the onboard trick. And unless you absolutely have to. So the trouble with those cards can be if the player there's a player that needs to run into it, then they'll just do it, and it's just a removal spell. But in a case like yours, this sat there and it just disincentivized attacking for the whole game. Yep.
Not to mention, there was a Deafening Silence in play, and that is a spell that I cast early that is now an activated ability, so I have extra interaction that does not count as casting a spell.
It's actually so gross. If you think about the actual effect of Aether Spellbomb, it probably like prevented, something on the order of like 30 damage, right? Like, people could have just hit you, but they just decided not to because they'd rather have somebody else lose their commander and then have to run it into a counterspell instead. It's powerful magic, man. Definitely good.
All right.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I have. Okay, so the dirty, right? So you've got Mystic Remora and Rhystic Study, and everybody who plays cPDH knows that those are banned cards in our format, but you utilize them to juice the deck up a little bit. So the real question, I know that you used Remora in one game.
Yep, I cast Remora once, never cast Rhystic Study.
So It could be said that you didn't necessarily need them.
I may as well have been playing cPDH.
How many cards did you draw off of your first Mystic Remora? Your only Mystic Remora?
Yeah, so the one game I cast it, I drew 4 cards. I kept it in play for 1 turn.
That's pretty good. But, all told, right?
But
you weren't
yeah, that was
cheering for
very
these.
strong, but I was winning that game regardless. I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah. Wow. So yeah, the point you're making here, Clay, is that the ultimate flex is that you basically won this deck with a mostly cPDH compliant deck. That's insane.
Yeah.
It's so sick.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah, that is incredible. So, why do you think the Winota player was not? This is a big question that was happening among the commentators in the chat. Why do you think Winota was not deploying their commander and attacking?
Aether Spellbomb.
That's literally it. Really?
Yeah, we were talking, and they're like, "I want to cast Winota, but if I cast Winota, it gets bounced, and then I have to play it again, and I'm tapped out for the turn cycle."
Do you think that you would have actually bounced it?
Yes.
Do you think it was coming at you?
Regardless, if Winota came down that early, he had like 5 creatures to trigger Winota the turn it dropped. I had no choice but to bounce it if they were to cast it.
So that's interesting.
And Winota players get really upset when you interact with their non-humans.
Yeah, turns out, as you learned, you just gunned them down and they got mad. So, yeah. The interesting thing about that, though, is if you think about the other players there, if they know that, then why weren't they swinging themselves? If they know that the Winota player was being bottled up by that single card, then they
swing, I'm forced to pop Spellbomb.
So
then we don't have Spellbomb for Winota.
Yeah, they're utilizing. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
So everybody is scared because everybody wants me to have Spellbomb, but nobody wants me to have
this is what we weren't getting when we were sitting in chat, was the conversations happening on your end, wherein there was a dynamic playing out there that so what I'm hearing is that people were scared of Winota.
Yeah, everyone's scared of Winota because Winota can get 5 triggers the turn she comes into play for half the game, which is absurd, and the game is Winota's if that happens, period.
Interesting. I'm curious why they wouldn't just like push that responsibility onto you to just counter it, right? Like couldn't the Gitrog player, for example?
I'm the only blue player at the table, so I understand it a bit, but yeah, they definitely could have forced it.
Like Gitrog or Kodama could have, those players could have pressured you, forced the Spellbomb, and then said, yeah, your problem now, and you're gonna have to deal with it, because if you don't, we'll all die.
Yep.
That's interesting. That was that. So we didn't get that deep in the chat in terms of exploring that dynamic of the Aether Spellbomb. I don't think anybody in chat really
nobody knew.
Well, they were talking about it. We were talking about how good the Spellbomb was, but we weren't talking about the fact that it was there was this sort of dynamic that was weaving its way around the table, wherein they didn't want the Spellbomb to pop because they didn't want Winota, and they weren't going to make you pop it because you were saying, I will pop it. That's really interesting. I still think it seems like they should have forced you to do it, and then basically bullied you to counter the Winota, which you would have to do, right? You'd be obligated. Interesting. That was talked about a lot in the chat about the Winota player not attacking, but also the Tago player and the Gitrog player just not attacking, because the game ended with high life totals.
Yeah, I got really lucky in that game, and I think I politicked really well too.
Yeah.
But
somebody said that you were a politician.
Yeah, and this is no discredit to your gameplay. You played this game masterfully, and of course this is a social game, and being able to navigate and weave your way between all those players is a credit to your skill as a player. It was just interesting to think about the things that the players could have been doing to proactive.
Probably should not have won that game, but
interesting.
We got there.
I'm tweeting with all the information that you're giving me.
So then another question would be, how much of that win would you attribute to the fact that you're playing a cPDH deck?
There is definitely a factor, because they didn't necessarily know my deck inside and out, but I know theirs inside and out, right? I know cEDH, I know Winota, but they don't know what I'm doing, and I think that really showed whenever the Togo player didn't throw a rock.
Yes.
Before my untapper didn't have something sickness. I was astonished.
Yeah, this was something.
I could have protected it, but still, like, it was insane.
So there were two things that happened there that you just covered, which was you had the ability to protect it, which was either a counterspell or a Tamiyo safekeeping. And
yeah, I had the Tamiyo safekeeping a long time. Counterspell wouldn't help because it's a rock.
Yes, exactly. So, so that interaction was something we were all like really. Everybody was very nervous to see whether there was going to be a rock thrown at the untapper. And I think for me, and it should have been, right? Like that's yes. It
very much should have.
And this is, where those like sorcery speed mass edicts that we have in cPDH come into play, where you're just sort of like taxing those creatures out of the game, or trying to, like limit their time in play so that they don't have haste. But the Togo player not tagging the what was it, the druid? It was the lay druid. I think it was Juniper. Well, there was the lay druid.
It was lay druid.
Yeah, lay druid. That was that's what you're saying. That was kind of astounding to you. Like, were you're just expecting that to happen?
Yeah. So I drew it a turn before I cast it, but I didn't cast it because I was like, it's gonna die to a rock.
Yeah.
And then I decided to just send it.
Yeah.
The next turn, I was like, if it happens, it happens. I have one protection spell. They only have one creature in play. Like.
And then they made a shitload of rocks.
Yeah, and then they just didn't throw it, and I was like, okay, so I'm fine now.
Now we're moving on to right after this, there was a scenario where there was lethal rock damage on board. There was your untapper in play. They had only enough mana to throw all the rocks, but one of their rocks was. One of their rocks was attached to a tapped creature. Rocks require you to tap. And one of the best interactions in the whole fucking game was you casting Echoing Truth on the creature to bounce the rock attached to the creature that couldn't get rid of it. Now, for those of you that don't know, Echoing Truth, if it loses its target, it no longer has a name, and so the other things don't get bounced. So,
and chat and the commentators were very confused about this because they didn't know what you were targeting. And then once everybody figured out that you were targeting the one attached to the tap creature, that's when you could see, it was palpable, the light bulb went on, and they were like, oh my god, that is big brain. So
I held a lot of interaction for that, and I had to that was right before the turn that I went for a win, right? So that turn I had to pop a Deafening Silence. I politicked Winota that turn, because I was like, I'm gonna have to bounce your board if you're swinging at me. And he was like, I will not swing lethal at you. And I know there's 4 damage in play, right? And I know that them saying I won't swing lethal at you means I will put you down to 4. But what they don't know is that I have 2 life gain in my hand, and the ability to force the rocks to be thrown this turn. So yeah, I got them to swing 5 at me, put 2 triggers of rocks on the stack because I'm forcing them to use the rocks that turn. And then gain 2 life with Tamiyo's safekeeping targeting my land to make sure that they couldn't blow up the target. So at that point, if they kill the untapper, I still have Archaeomancer Snap to win the game. The untapper is extra at this point. It was 2 turns before that I was like, yeah, this game's over. As soon as the land untapper made it a turn cycle, and that gave me an extra Gretchen activation per turn cycle from that point, because I had a land that tapped for 4.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, yeah, this game's over.
So I message Puzzle mid-game when I jump in, and I'm looking at the board state. I'm seeing how many cards he has in hands. I'm seeing these auras in play, 32 life, full grip according to the announcers, and I message you and I say something along the lines of, where is it here? Yeah, I say, keep your cool, you got this. And,
yeah, I didn't see your message, but
and he goes, dude, my hands were shaking so bad. So this is, I think, it's about the time when you were realizing, like, oh, I think I'm gonna win this game. Like just, you've got multiple layers of protection. You've got what were you playing against in your mind that you were going to have to counter to win this? Like, what were your sort of worry points about your like fail state? Was it dying to combat damage?
No, it was Gitrog. Gitrog had an emergence zone in play.
Oh,
which means they can go for a win on top of my win. But the turn that I went for the win, they tapped their emergence zone that turn cycle.
Wow.
And,
okay, so let's pull this pull this deck up. So this is the Gitrog deck. See if we can find it here. Not everybody like put their commander.
I think you might have went past it. I saw Dakmor salvage up.
Oh, Dakmor salvage. Yeah, that's the one. Okay. So
I assume that's the Gitrog deck.
So let's find that emergence zone. That is a
land.
Yeah. Oh, there it is. Yep. Okay. Sacrifice it, you may cast spells as though they had flash. And
yeah,
what?
So yeah, Gitrog can win at instant speed very easily.
In a way that's uncounterable.
All Gitrog needs to do is not uncounterable, but I have to deal with a discard outlet, and I can do that. But if they have 2, it starts getting really sketchy.
Interesting.
Yeah, they cast a discard outlet, I counter it, they cast another discard outlet in response, and then, you know, they can go for a Dakmor salvage loop to draw through their deck and cast Dark Ritual and make infinite mana and win on top of me.
Wow.
So that was the scariest thing.
So with that being said, is there an element of the Winota and Kodama players knowing that this was a thing and not wanting you dead?
Maybe. There was a deafening silence in play until the turn that I won.
Yeah, that was also controlling the Gitrog player.
Loop.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was really helping.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it seems like the deafening silence may have just been like people may have misinterpreted what that was accomplishing, because yes, it was keeping
that was my deafening silence.
Yeah, that was your deafening silence. This is the hashtag all your bases belong to us cheat code of StarCraft, where it's like, no, that's not yours. This is doing my work. So wow, that is fantastic. And so end of the game, you ended up comboing off with which creature?
I made infinite mana with the Ley Druid and Freed from the Real.
Yep.
With my land tap for 4.
Yeah.
Just made infinite mana. They cast a Naturalize in response to the first untap, and I just put another activation on the stack because
that's what you
right
do.
on top.
Freed from the Real works.
Right on top.
And, yeah, just made infinite mana, went through, capsized the board, cast my other creature that is a Freed from the Real.
Yep, so your Galvanic Alchemist.
Go to main phase 2 to empty mana pools.
Oh, yeah.
And go from there. Go for my venture loop.
That is masterful. So, based on this here, there are several elements of this deck that, in the cPDH context, are like evolutions, I want to say, of the combo meta, and one of those is that you have these creatures that require an untap to win, but that is not necessary for you to win. You can just win on the spot. And I think what we saw for a while is we had like Tatyova deck that required, for the most part, that you had aside from the Peregrine Drake, Ghostly Flicker, Archaeomancer, or Pneumatic Wall combo with a High Tide, that the untapping, the land, the creatures that put lands into play with Tidal Bore all took a turn to wind up. And it meant that people could kill things that didn't have haste to stop the combo. And what we have here is a deck that almost in a lot of ways like baits out interaction on these sorcery speed or sort of non-hasty untappers. And that seems to be a really interesting dynamic moving forward, is that you do have to kill these things, but it is not does not mean you're going to
necessarily baiting, because they will win the game, but
yes. So you do want to kill them, but that doesn't mean that you cannot win at instant speed or on your own turn. With some of these new techs like the Archaeo Snap, High Tide, or the Ouroboros Breezecaller, which can go that same very turn. So moving forward, do you think that this has implications for other cPDH combo decks that are in the Simic space?
It's possible. I think Gretchen is strong, even in cPDH. I think she's very powerful. I've been playing her for like a month and a half, 2 months now, just grinding her so that I could learn the deck for this tournament. And my cPDH list is different. I play Strider's Harness as a haste enabler. I play some Fogs, like Moment's Peace, because damage is a lot more relevant. But
you also have Weather the Storm.
Yep, Weather the Storm. I can gain infinite life during a storm turn, or just, gain 15 life twice, as Ryan has experienced.
Yeah. This is a funny thing. Like in chat, we were talking about this, and I thought one of the things that made me really confident in your position was actually misunderstanding your deck. I didn't realize that you didn't have these cards available to you in your deck. I, with these, I thought, he's like low life, but like don't like, it's not a big deal. Like he can gain it back with Weather Storm. And when I realized you didn't, I got a lot more nervous. But I didn't have
2 life, and that was enough.
Yeah, that was sufficient. That's all you needed. In cPDH, these cards are far more crucial. Because
they're more relevant because there's no stacks. Stacks prevents a deep stack and the ability to gain a bunch of life off of Weather the Storm. So
and then
Moment's Peace is not a bad piece of tech. Speaking like Michila, Winota.
And then you also have your Strider Harness here to occasionally be able to go at instant
haste.
Speed. Or with haste, for your untappers. So, the thing about Gretchen that I remember not that long ago when I was looking at having some combo decks in my battle box, I actually switched out Tatyova for Gretchen, and
I think Gretchen's better.
Oh. So this was a read that I had wondered about. But I didn't have experience with the deck enough to say it. But say that again.
I think Gretchen is better than Tatyova.
Okay. Yeah.
Where at?
In cPDH.
Yeah. Okay.
So
say it.
Yeah.
Okay. So what line? Okay. So now we're getting nuanced. So which combo lines in Gretchen are you speaking directly to?
I don't think it's the combo lines.
You just think it's the unassumingness?
I think Mystic Sanctuary is broken. And I think being able to... You can loop Mystic Sanctuary with Gush, Tragic Lesson, Deprive, Andaboro Breeze Color with Gretchen, because you bounce it to your hand, put it into play with Gretchen activation, draw cards, and you can loop that just constantly. And, you know, no one's gonna... If you're interacting with Gretchen herself, you're already losing.
Yeah, this is
not good.
There was
the same could be said for Tatiova as well. Like if you're interacting with Tatiova yourself, you're losing.
It's the other things that Tatiova has in play. The creatures that put the lands into play are far more important than the commander, than they can get back over and over and over again. And this is really one of those places where Gretchen has proven itself in my mind, is that it's 2 mana. And the difference between 2 and 5 is dramatic. A Tatiova player does not usually get priced out of Tatiova, but it does get expensive. You know, when you're sitting there paying 11 mana for Tatiova, that doesn't leave a ton of room to do other things, whereas Gretchen doesn't really need to be in play. Like, and if you make infinite mana, then you just cast Gretchen and you have your infinite outlet. It's very similar to, or actually I should say Sludge Strider has a similar thing where it's like Sludge Strider doesn't need to be in play at any point in time for you to combo off, because once you make infinite mana, you just play it and then you drain and then you get to win. And Gretchen's the same way. Once you make that infinite, you just draw your whole deck, put all your lands into play, and it's a wrap. And so one of the other things about her being 2 mana though, and this is really what made Gretchen appealing to me, is she's a 0/4. Damn, she thick.
It's a good blocker.
It's a great blocker, and there have been so many times we have played where I've got attackers that just fundamentally won't get through because you can just block them, and that ability to dissuade aggression and to essentially suggest to people that they'd be more productive going elsewhere is buying you immense amounts of life and time, and that's something Tatiova can't do. It's like that extra toughness is really big. I often talk about 4 toughness black creatures as being some of the most resilient creatures in the format, but it's like 4 toughness is good enough on its own. It's dodging bolts. It's you know, it's a powerful effect to have in the command zone, just having a body. And
it is worth noting that Tatiova does gain life, which you know, can replace that blocking issue to some extent. But I think just the fact that Gretchen, I feel like part of the thing is that Gretchen can just make infinite mana and then cast Gretchen, right?
Yeah.
Whereas Tatiova kind of needs Tatiova to be in play for most of the combos.
So Gretchen is kind of like the synthesis of Weavers and Tatiova, the best parts of that.
Yeah,
it puts them together, you know? I don't have like the Untapper in my command zone or infinite life in my command zone. But I've got a strong value piece that's not going to get removed.
Or if it does, it's kind of a mistake.
Lost. Yeah, it's like you remove it, I'll cast her next turn. I don't care.
Yeah, using removal on Gretchen is like, feels kind of bad, but it's oftentimes something that I will do purely to get damage in, right? To like prevent you from being able to block with it.
As the mid-range player, fair.
Yeah, but it doesn't feel good because you're just going to recast it again. And I know that it's not a crucial piece, right? So when I'm casting like a Fleshbag Marauder and you have like a Voyaging Satyr in play, you just sack the Gretchen. And that feels real bad. Now, one of the foils to this deck, and we've seen this a couple of times, is Pestilence.
Pestilence sucks, but what are you going to do? It's a creature-based combo deck.
Yep, and you've got counterspells, you've got Rewind, Unwind, you've got Negate, you've got Counterspell, Arcane Denial. I do notice that some of these counterspells do not counter some important things, and so we're obviously looking at our cEDH Budget Brews version of the deck, not your cPDH version. But cards like Flash Counter, I'm kind of wondering whether something like this would carry over into the cPDH context, seeing as it does not counter some of those important spells like Pestilence.
I think it's really meta dependent. I think Flash Counter is good in combo metas, obviously.
Yeah, that's a pretty slam dunk.
In more mid-range metas, you might be better off with something like a Logic Knot.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, it really just depends.
Well, this has been fascinating, and it's really cool to hear your perspective on this. And I am just so tickled that we have a cPDH player taking down like a prominent tournament with their cPDH deck. It's just like such a flex, and such a great, you know, I think there's going to be people who are in that chat, and I saw it, who are like, damn, this is powerful, and they're going to be enticed to come and play cPDH with us. And that is
my favorite thing I heard all day was multiple times, that's a common. I was like, yes sir.
yeah we're just gonna dispel that notion that that Pauper Commander is not a powerful format right away in everyone's mind. Yeah, so is there anything else you wanted to talk about with this deck? Anything else that kind of came up during that game, or any other observations you had that you wanted to share?
If you want to play this deck as a legal cPDH deck at cEDH tables, replace Mystic and Ristic with Foil and Daze. I wish I had those. You
wish you'd had those during the game?
Because people were tapping out, yeah.
More so than Ristic and Mystic?
More so, probably not.
You'd probably switch out Flash Counter.
I'd take Foil over Ristic, but like if you want this to be a fully legal cPDH deck and still play it at EDH tables.
Oh, I see. Got it. Yep.
I would put those two in over Ristic and Mystic.
Great. Awesome. Well, that's some fantastic insight and some great, just a great look into how this really top-notch combo deck functions, and also just really grateful, Puzzle, for walking us through your deck, the game, your thinking, the dynamics that we didn't get when we were sitting in chat wondering what kind of table talk was happening, and just big congratulations to you. Well done, sir.
Thank you.
All right.
Politics.
Well, that's a wrap for this little interview here. Thank you for your time, Puzzle. And thank you everyone in chat for coming and hanging out today. If you're enjoying this content and you want to see more of it, hit the subscribe button. And if you want to support what you're doing, leave a comment and a like. Yeah? What do you got?
Don't forget to go visit Puzzle on his YouTube.
That is absolutely.
Support his channel. He just hit 100 subs.
Oh, hell yeah.
So let's amplify that guy.
Yeah, so I will drop a link here in chat. It's a little tough to find. You got to do Puzzlebox MTG. The algorithms have not yet discovered your channel. So is it the Puzzlebox?
It's just Puzzlebox.
Puzzlebox MTG
PDH, it should come
PDH. Okay, good. There it is. So I will leave a link in chat. Sweet, you've got your new link there at Puzzlebox. I will drop that in there for all y'all to go check out. Go subscribe to his content and throw some likes his way. Yeah, so I think we're all done for the interview portion of of today. Do we have any more games to play?
I'd like to take a small 30-minute break to get some food, and then maybe we can hop back in.
Yeah, so what we could do is I could just throw the I could end it, or we could
you should probably end it for editing purposes, and you don't want to overload your computer.
Oh yeah, it's fine.
Anyway.
Okay, cool. So we'll end things for now. We may or may not be back later on. If you want to know when we're going live, the best way to do it is to go and hit that little bell icon next to subscribe. We are doing all of our content live basically right now. There's a little bit of it that Clay is doing that is interviews with people, and even that at some point may go live. Depending on how things go. This is kind of the format that we are enjoying right now. It's great to be able to interact with people in chat. And so
I have one interview that is definitely going to be broadcast live, but that's because you'll see when it happens.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, if you want to check in with us, we may be back later today. Then that'd be great. But connoisseurs of fine common cardboard and the tryhards out there, thank you very much. You have a great day. And we'll catch you all on the flip side. Peace.
So, Clay, you're playing Gretchen today, right?